autogenic training, very complicated. If you love yoga, you might like it because it's got lots of exercises that are very demanding exercises. It works, but it's also very long and lengthy. And like so much of all these things, they generally require a coach, a facilitator, a practitioner. So utilizing them to make some uncovering, to break through some invisible barrier, good idea. But even when you do utilize them, you'll talk to any one of these people that use them, and they'll tell you what I'm going to tell you today. Getting into the unconscious is not simple. Augmenting some way of changing that dialogue inside your head is desirable. Breaking through those self-imposed limitations is a necessity. And the responsibility to do that is you, not the facilitator, but you. In America, where it's used with physicians, healthcare practitioners, it's considered to be a take-home modality. You see your psychotherapist, you go home, and you have a little bit of therapy. So it isn't that these things aren't good or that they don't work. It's that for most of them, they take time that we're not inclined to invest in improving ourselves. Well, there's another problem that accompanies this, and that has to do with inclined to invest in improving ourselves. Our motivation. We say to ourselves, I want this. This is for me. I'm going to do this. So there's a great speaker coming to town. He's known to be, he, she, a great motivational person. And you say, you know, I'm going to go there and I'm going to get the secrets to all the success in the world. I'm going to hear this person. You go to them and you listen. We've done exit studies on some of these motivational rallies. And boy, there are some that they're contagious. They're electric. The hackles on your neck stand up. You get goosebumps. Wow, wow. They have lights going in the background. They're like magic acts. And when you leave, we ask, hey, is this going to make a difference? And the vast majority say yes. Boy, I got some things here today that are just really going to change my life. I'm so glad I came. And then we go back 60 days later, and we ask these people, what have you done? How did you use the tools that you learned? Oh, you know, it just didn't work for me. I think my personality is a little different than that. Oh, I haven't had time yet. You know, I'm still probably going to do something, but I haven't had time. I just haven't got around to it. And on and on and on and on. Lots of excuses. Only a very small percentage of those people that went to that seminar actually used the tools, actually follow through. There's some script inside them, some resistance that's stopping them. It has nothing to do with the fact that it was a good tool or a bad tool that fits their personality, doesn't fit their personality. It has nothing to do with whether or not they had the time. They spent a lot of good money to go there. They spent maybe a day, maybe 5 days attending. All it has to do with some inner script. That's why they don't do it. And then the next time somebody comes to town, not right away because we've got to have time, and we have to clear that out. Maybe the next year. Oh, there's a great speaker coming to town. I'm going to go there, and we do it all over again. You see a self-improvement industry, and you see people that are going to one after another, like the first one didn't have the answers that they told us it did. Has nothing to do with that. Has to do with them. Has to do with you. You ultimately have that responsibility. There's first denial. Everybody knows what denial is. No, I didn't do that. Wasn't me. Only we get denial in the unconscious as well. We get denial that refuses to acknowledge certain behaviors, that even rationalizes those behaviors. We have fantasy formation. Fantasy formation is simply, boy, if I ever run into her again, I'm going to say, I don't know, I can't see enough to tell. You know? We fantasize not just about our behavior, but we fantasize about what we could have said, should have said, how we should have acted, could have acted, both in creating who we are and in creating defense mechanisms. It's their fault, not mine. We have introjection. That's common. We take too much blame. We put it all back on ourselves. I must not be any good. I just never have been able to do that. Or I just made a mistake. In acute cases, this can literally paralyze the human condition and its potential. We have isolation. Oh, that's withdrawal. We just pull away. We just disengage. Maybe we disengage like I'm never going to be on a stage. I'm not a singer. I can't hit a note. There's no way I'm going to ever sing again. But we isolate not just ourselves, but our behavior from ever engaging in some activities. And we also do that in defense mechanisms in how we perceive what we don't perceive. And I'll show you that visually in a minute. We have projection. I remember an arrest one day. The guy has just committed a burglary. He's fleeing from the scene. County detective grabs him. They're in a big fight. And I happen to just be driving by. Bang, out of the car. We cuff this guy. He's standing up. He's going to sue me. He's going to sue the county. He didn't do anything. This is a false arrest. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We tip his coat upside down, and it's got the contents of the house in it. What we have in projection is you're guilty, not me. And we see that very, very often in personal relationships. There's some behavior that's not working, and you accuse the other one of the behavior that you're doing yourself. That's projection. We have regression. True regression, we literally go back to an infantile age. I once worked with a young man by the name of Vic, whose father had access to every hospital in the world. And his son had been cross-diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and polio. But the bottom line, he was in a degenerative condition, in a wheelchair, and given a very short life expectancy. Boy was 14 years old. Vic flew into my offices. Is there anything we can do? We went through his profile at great extent. Robert Youngblood, an MD, qualified in this area, joined me, and we developed a profile. We basically concluded this was some kind of sibling rivalry because Vic was born healthy, he was born well, everything in his life was going great. He was the center of the universe, a very affluent family, being literally bathed with anything and everything. And then he has a sibling born. Well, the sibling suddenly is the center of attention, and Vic suddenly starts getting ill. All of the attention shifts back to Vic. And the sicker he is, the more attention he gets. He has special wheelchairs. The house is rigged with elevator lifts on the stairs. No expenses barred. Well, the only thing in Vic's history, and we kind of overlooked this at the beginning, was he had a minor birth defect that required a tracheotomy. Tracheotomy was done when he was 2. Sibling was born shortly thereafter. Now, I tell you that because it becomes important. We created the profile, sent the programs home with Vic Sr. Vic put a sound system throughout his house, which would be his style. It played in every room, 24 hours of the day. Vic Jr., in the middle of the night, 24-hour surveillance, the alarm goes off. He can't breathe. They rush him to the hospital. They do a tracheotomy. He recovers from the trach and the wheelchair. I have a picture of this boy, 16 years of age, 2 years later. There's no degeneration. He's standing proudly holding his driver's license up, sending me a letter with his photograph standing next to his new vehicle. 16, chasing girls, having fun, doing what 16-year-olds do. Regression. 20/20 hindsight, what did he do to cause a tracheotomy at 14? Turned his oxygen up. That's what caused the choking. That's what led to leading him to the hospital. Did he consciously do that? I don't know. Is there a correspondence between he's in optimal health at 2 years of age the tracheotomy, and returning to optimal health following a tracheotomy? I suggest there probably is. But that's an example of regression. Repression, hey, I just hide it from myself. I told you about my repressed experience. And sublimation. If Freud were correct, as a young man, I had fantasies, sexual fantasies about my mother. Don't think I did. Wouldn't admit to it if I did. But if Freud were correct, every young man does. We sublimate that drive by putting it out towards someone else. If we're healthy, it's some significant other, our wife or whatnot. Not or whatnot, better be your wife, guys. When we look then at quick overviews of models, there are three that fit in the area that we're discussing today, of the unconscious and uncovering and motivating and re-scripting. The first one is the magical mind of Carl Jung. Now, I have great respect for Jung. Great psychologist. He's the man that essentially told us there was a collective unconscious. And that collective unconscious was ever present. And we tapped into it. And that might explain such things as serendipity and synchronicity, why there are 20 scientists, 20 different parts of the world working on the same project, making the same breakthrough at the same time without communication. Well documented. But Jung and the interpreters of Jung have made this kind of a magical unconscious. Hey, I don't know if it's magical or not, but I know I'm not going to go down that path and try and be a scientist. So I'm going to tell you we're not going to use any magical mind concepts. Dynamic unconscious, I've covered that. Parts of that are very controversial, I think rightly so. Part of it is not. I'm going to opt for who? William James. He coined the term stream of consciousness, and that's what we're going to talk about in our model today. What is a stream of consciousness? It's all that self-talk, all that chatter in my mind. Do I know it exists? Sure, I live with it every day. Do you know it exists? Sure, you live with it every day. We all experience that chatter. Does that chatter agree with everything I want? No. And that's the model we're going to use. We're going to look at cognitive engineering by changing the way we talk to ourselves. But before we do that, I want you to now condense this material into a model. Bill Gilroy, my friend who taught me it's okay to stand in front of all of you. You're not going to shoot me or throw darts at me, and I can double check and make sure my zipper's up. Designed this. If we look at our expectation again, reality is what we believe to be true. Is that right or wrong? Somebody tells you that this reality is not real, it's an illusion. Can you really believe that? I mean, I believe it academically, but I'm kind of the philosopher John Locke was. René Descartes argued, I doubt that I am, therefore I am. Well, if his appendix was ruptured, he wouldn't doubt that he existed. You know, when you're in pain, you don't doubt that you exist. If I doubt this exists and then I kick it as hard as I can, I won't doubt it for long. But in reality, quantum physicists tell us it doesn't exist. It's all waveform. Reality is what I believe to be true. What we believe to be true is therefore what we perceive. I don't know how many of you have seen the flick, it's called What the Bleep, but it's full of renowned scientists. A lot of conversation goes on in this. It shows us what I believe to be true is not necessarily what's true. Perhaps the Aztecs in Montezuma were indeed easily conquered by an inferior army because, as they say in What the Bleep, they had never seen ships of that kind, so they literally didn't see them. They thought it was gods with their golden helmets walking on water, just as they report. If we haven't ever seen it, is it possible for us to see it? What we believe to be true is what we perceive. What we perceive is what we look for, or what we expect, good, bad, or indifferent. What we look for is what we know. What we know is what we believe to be true. And what we believe to be true is reality. And we just go in that circularity. So in other words, if my expectation says something cannot exist, it cannot exist. It's that simple. And you won't prove otherwise. It just simply is outside of my realm of belief. I'll refuse to look at it some way or another. My reality will be made up without that. Is that reality? I don't think so. When you look at a model of the mind, we have an unconscious. If we just use Einstein's model, that represents probably 90% of our total mental capacity. We do a lot of things with neuroscience today, and we trace all the activities of the brain. We can say, look, if you're an adult and you're trying to learn a second language, you're going to develop a new area that is adjacent to your language center to process that. It's going to be more difficult than if you're a child. We can tell you lots of things about the tickings of the brain and how it relates to what we call perception. But remember white crows? We really can't build a good model. We have savants, a famous savant, who can read 2 books at the same time. Has no corpus callosum. Not only can he read one with the right eye and one with the left eye at the same time, he remembers every word he read. And of some 3,500 books, he can recite every one of them word for word. We have a twin savants, 2 of them, that have the ability to do prime numbers. They do it for fun, as fast as a computer. Now, I'm not talking about prime numbers like 1, 3, 5. We're talking about prime numbers that are 30, 40 integers long. How is that possible? We don't have an explanation for those things. With all of our mapping, with all of our understanding, we're still at a loss for the power of the mind. We're still at a loss for being able to explain these various white crows or anomalies of consciousness. Well, what we're going to do with our model is we're just going to make it really simple. Okay, 90% of the total brain capacity is unconscious. That leaves 10%, which is the popular, this is what I use. And in that popular, this is what I use, it would appear that about 3%, if you go along with the statistics that are generated by lots of people, and I qualify that because I have trouble with those statistics. I mean, when we don't know how deep something is or how high something is, how can you get into percentages of anything? But I'll go along with them for the sake of our model. 3% is our consciousness, what we're aware of right now. And 7% is what we call preconscious. Now, what's preconscious? Well, you know, I remember the lyrics to the song Vaya con Dios, but I don't always have them right there. If I start to think about it, let's see, how did that go? Then I remember it. Our preconscious holds a lot of information that is accessible to us, but that we don't run around every minute of the day holding in consciousness. Our preconscious also communicates somehow with our unconscious and somatic information processing. What's somatic information processing? It's what's going on in my body right now, your body right now, and every day and every minute that we're alive. And I'm typically not aware of it. But if suddenly my heartbeat goes boom, 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 I become aware. That's the somatic information. Somehow the unconscious can communicate that, get our attention through the preconscious, and it comes into consciousness. All right, so in this model, most of who we are and what we know, we just simply don't understand. It's hidden, if you will, in the subliminal part of the mind. 4 drives. I'll never forget, I had a professor, a very famous professor, who said to me, you know, you can always remember it if you think of it as there are the 4 F's. Now, this is for English speakers, and please, I don't want to offend anybody, and you might have to fill it in some. If you don't get it, that's okay. Drives are fundamental aspects of the human creature that we all seek. It's a species-oriented mechanism as well as an individual-oriented mechanism. The first drive is fight. The second drive is flight. Fight, flight, we all know that. The next drive is feeding. We have to feed, don't we? We have to eat. And the last drive in any mixed audience, unless you're talking to cops, is breeding, propagation of the species. He called it his 4F seminar. We all got it. You never forgot it. Today we have a fifth drive. That fifth drive in the Western world seems to be more. I want more. I want more. Yesterday I was having a conversation here as they were preparing everything. And I happened to talk about this fifth drive, and the fellow that I was talking to says, well, you know, we don't have so much of that. Well, that isn't something that goes on in Malaysia. But wow. And this morning I picked up today's newspaper, your newspaper, not mine. And what do I find on page 3? Visit Singapore for stress relief. Shop your stress relief away. But really, they got the same problem we've got. I want more. We've turned everybody into consumers. Consumption is therapy. You know, if I'm depressed, if I'm stressed, I'll go shopping. And this picture, I guarantee you get today's paper, there's this very beautiful woman, and she must have 10, 12 pairs of shoes out in front of her. And she's just deciding which one she wants in the convenience of this Shangri-La. So maybe you don't have that drive, but in the Western world, we see it everywhere. I want more. What do you want more of? I want more fame. I want more attention. I want more love. I want more friends. You know, it's like a child. I'm bored. I want something. Buy me something. I want more. I want more cars. I want more success. I want more money. I want more. You know what we don't hear? I want more awe. When I was a boy, I'll never forget walking out my front door one day, and we had a rose bush. And this rose bush had a beautiful young red flower on it. And it had rained lightly the night before, and there were these little pearls of water on this rose. And the sun was just hitting it perfectly, so that every one of them lit a rainbow of colors that was falling on the back of my house, right behind it. I looked at that and beheld it in awe. Wow, what beauty. And remember that to this day, because the first sense I probably had of awe was the glorious beauty in that rose. That rose to me smelled sweeter than any rose I've ever smelled in my life, and I'm sure it had nothing to do with the scent of the rose itself. It was the awe of that moment. I don't hear anybody say, I want more awe. You don't hear too many people saying, you know, I just want more peace. I want to feel comfortable with myself, at home with myself. I just want more peace. Now, this fifth drive seems to be outward, like so much of everything that we look for in our lives. We have a metaphor. It's a story of the creation. We have all these archangels, and their job is to hide God. Now, I'm going to use God today this way. G for grand, O, organizing, D, designer. We all have lots of words for the grand organizing designer. Culture to culture, religion to religion, there are different words. So I'm not talking about any one, I'm talking about one. The grand organizing designer has commissioned the archangels to hide himself from man. And they get together and they say, okay, well, we probably ought to hide him at the bottom of the sea. No. Man's cunning. He'll get to the bottom of the sea. Well, let's hide him in deep space. No. He'll sooner or later get to deep space. And they come up with 2 or 3 other ideas. And finally, one says, I know, let's hide him inside man. He'll never look. And that's a pretty powerful metaphor if you think about it for a moment, just as a metaphor. What is awe? It's a sense that there's something greater than myself. And does that have any power over me and my behavior and my life and my health? Absolutely. Study after study after study shows the value of honor. This fifth force in our Western world is simply more. I want more toys. I want more money. I want more success, etc. Let's start to tie things together, all right? And we have fight and flight. Anxiety and depression in modern man is fight and flight. You know, if I'm going to fight, I'm ready. And what is anxiety? It's a heightened state of arousal where my system is filled with adrenaline and other neurochemicals. All of a sudden, my stomach doesn't work because it's not important. Everything's gone out to the exterior. I am ready to fight. And what is depression in its deepest sense? Absolute withdrawal, total flight, indeed, even suicidal flight in chronic depression. We've discovered a system of beliefs. I call them subliminal beliefs because, hey, look, that just fits. You call them subconscious beliefs. We have a whole structure of beliefs inside our subconscious. And if we were to put those on a hedonic calculus, and I'm using that after hedons of pleasure and hedons of pain from the Greek philosophers, we